Bam, bam. Oh, here we are again. Here we are again. We're here again. Good morning. Oh, it's starting. It's starting early. It's starting early. Good morning, everyone. As everybody joins in. I know. Yeah, we're gonna have so many questions today. We're gonna have so many questions today. Here they come. We're gonna have so many questions today. Just seems like these Saturdays just come so fast. They come so fast. Oh, that's better. They come so fast. It's 1 a.m. Ooh, goodness. It's 8 hours behind us. Sometimes. Great morning. Hello, Peggy. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hopefully everybody had a good week. Hopefully everyone's having a good morning. I'm watching How to Train Your Dragon. Ah, there we go. Good movie. Everyone says I sound like that movie. Good morning from Wisconsin. Hello. Good morning. I'm not going to be on long because I just got done with a 12-hour graveyard shift. That is, God bless you, man. My mom is a registered nurse and she does 12-hour shifts overnight too, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Forget that, man. Forget that. That's all right, Aiden, though. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. We give it, 5 minutes like usual. We let everyone come on in. And then we'll give you some updates. We'll answer some questions. We'll show off some reptiles. You guys know the routine by now. Great day in the morning. You are Russell. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you much. I was up until 6 a.m. yesterday. And now it's 1 a.m. Dude, you've been up for almost 24 hours. You're just 5 hours short, 19 hours. That's when they say pulling an all-nighter, they were not joking. Have you ever seen a snake doing the deed? Yeah, there's not much going on, but yeah, it's quite common because snake breeding is quite common. So you can look up a lot of videos. It's not graphic or anything. They just twist their tails together. And that's all that you get to see. I need sleep, but I refuse. There we go. Show your body who's in control. I would say you're beyond the point of needing sleep. Give me tips for fattening up my leopard gecko. Oh boy. No, most ball pythons don't like having another ball python in the tank. Can stress them out. They're not known to be a super sociable snake. And you can be done as long as the tank is big enough and you have 2 separate hot spots and a lot of space. Should I eat right now? I don't know if my parents will wake, though. That's a great question. Probably, well, I don't know, because if you're going to be going right to bed real quick, probably not. Um, is there yeah. So a lot of snakes, um, they're typically in larger areas, but we've seen things like black-headed pythons do well together. Male and female, or two females. Sometimes some boas do well together. Again, two females, and I wouldn't be surprised if two female ball pythons could exist quite well together, actually. But most snakes, because of their size, if you think about it, they and the way they curl up, they can't really share a hot spot. That would have to be an exceptionally large hot spot. So typically, you do more than one. So it's not like they get together and cuddle or anything like that. They would be constantly competing for the hot spot, or constantly competing for the really cool spot to hide in. So you think about everything you have in a snake enclosure, you would need to double that to compensate for that. And that's with most snakes. Once you put two, you really need a good size, because you need to double everything. Because even if you don't put two hot spots, you need to double the size of your hot spots, so you could have two snakes right next to each other, still getting full basking. Um, what reptiles do the deed the best? Dude, you really want to know about this, don't you? Probably snakes. Anything with a tail that can wrap and lock, the easiest. Someone had asked, okay, there you go, Denny. So, Denny, I've done a video on Savannah monitors on diapause. They don't go into brumation. Savannah monitors do not. They do go into a diapause state sometimes in the wild, depending on access to food, which is just in the wet months. So what would be their winter season, but it's not winter, right? So in the wet months, where food is very prominent, Savannah monitors will eat a lot of food, and they'll start to look very obese. And then when the dry season comes, there's not that food, and what they do is they climb up into trees, and they stay in the shade of the trees for like 8 months, and they don't eat, and they just live off their body fat, and they become very skinny and kind of decrepit looking. And then the wet season comes again, and then they'll eat again. So, but as a pet, as long as you're keeping their weight constant, you don't need to do a diapause. Now, there's been some testing done, which has shown no positive either way, about if you're breeding Savannah monitors, perhaps putting the females at least through this diapause is important to maybe make them more fertile. But there's not been any conclusive evidence that females who go through diapause are more fertile than females that don't. So you're really just monitoring the weight. I think your snake wants to boop on the snoot. Do you want to boop on the snoot? I don't know. This is the thing. There's a thing. A lot of people, I don't know. A lot of people like to boop the snakes. So Denny, the big thing is just keeping the Savannah monitor's weight under control, not letting a lot of fat build up, because they're a lazy big lizard. So it's very easy for them to put on fat. And a lot of the times when necropsies are done with ones that die, their organs are just encased in fat, because it's natural for them to easily store fat because of the wild. So it can be very normal for your adult Savannah monitor to be fed once, maybe twice a week, and that's it. Although they would eat every single day. Is that snake you're holding, doesn't want to do the deed? No, she doesn't want to do the deed. She's too small. I nominate you to find out. You watch videos of all the reptiles and report back next month. Oh, that's very good. Watch videos. No, I'm a hands-on learner. Good for you. She keeps stretching out towards your face. That's why she was about to boot her. She's just checking everything out, getting sense, right? So if you guys don't know, this is Guinevere. This is the newest of the ball pythons that I rescued. and it's just important to handle your snakes all the time to keep them docile. You don't want, if you want to keep them docile, I should say, if you want them to act like a wild snake, then don't interact with them and only interact with them when you feed them. But if you want them to be just super chill like this and not have any risk of them biting you, there's a 0% chance, right? It's probably in the negatives that she would bite me right now. There's no reason. There's no reason. She's not, if I put her around my neck, she wouldn't choke me. None of that would happen. But you have to handle your snakes to keep them docile like this. Otherwise, if their only interaction with you is when you feed them, then every time you interact with them, they're going to assume they're going to be fed, and then they're going to get overly excited or go into food mode and, possibly strike you. But if since you only feed them once every 3 weeks, once every month, depending on the age, sometimes a little bit quicker when they're really, small babies. But if you're only doing that, then most of your interactions are actually these calm interactions and these friendly interactions and these affectionate interactions. And that's what your snake is going to expect when you're interacting with them. They're not going to expect the food. So then you got to go through a whole nother thing of putting them into food mode, which is really easy. Thaw out their rats and then leave the dried rats in a bucket in the room with the snakes, and that scent will go through the air for about 30 minutes, and then it will put them in food mode, and then you feed them. Much easier to get them in and out of food mode than to get them in and out of affection mode. So if you keep them in the affection mode 99% of the time, you got nothing to worry about. I have not gotten the opportunity, but a lot of people do, because a lot of people show you how to, when you're trying to breed snakes, a lot of people will show you kind of what to look for, but really you just put the snakes together, and if the snakes want to breed, they'll breed, and if they don't, they don't. There's not really much you can do. Sometimes you can help try to line things up, but for your beardies, do you keep the same light schedule year round, or just that's a good question. So I've kind of shifted with this, where I used to decrease my light by 1 hour a day in the winter, and I used to put it back up in the summer, and I stopped. I kind of just kept it the same year round, because what I noticed, even in the wintertime when they're not brumating, you would shut the light off and they would just stay awake. And then if I turned the light on early, they would still sleep, right? Because they have two eyelids. So when they close their eyes, it's pretty dark. So because of that, I was seeing no effect, and the UVB light really only matters when they're really under it for prime basking time. So what I did is I kind of just, one is, when am I awake? When am I making noise? Because the noise is more likely to get them to wake up. But now that they're in the reptiles rooms, I can shut the door so it can be quieter. But I looked at their sleep schedule and picked a good 10 to 12 hour gap, and look at your beardy. If you see your bearded dragon is going to bed at 7 o'clock every night, why do you need to keep the light on till 8? It doesn't do anything. So you just do that. But it's a good question, because people would say, increase for this, decrease for this. Like I look at Simba right now. He's passed out. He's sleeping. He's dead asleep. He's on his heat map, which is at full heat right now, and he's under the UVB light. So at least he's absorbing UVB. He's heating, but he's just choosing to sleep. So if I had the lights off, he'd be doing the exact same thing in the exact same spot. But sometimes when they're asleep like this, for all lizards, same thing with bearded dragons, depending on where they sleep, if they sleep in a basking area, then that's some of the best time for them to get UVB, because they're not adventuring, they're not exploring, they're just sleeping or napping. But if it's from the overnight nap, it works really well. So you just look at your dragon or lizard, and you look at their sleep schedule, and you can adjust your lights accordingly. If Simba slept most of the time in his hide underneath, he rarely does that, I would have things turn on a little bit later. Because I know he doesn't really get moving until about 10 a.m. I don't think they care. Which is a good, which is not a, not. I guess it's a good question if you're trying to breed because you want everything to line up, increase your chances as best as possible to get a successful mate, and then to hopefully produce a successful clutch of eggs or live birth, I guess, depending on what the reptile is. Lots of questions about that. A little suspect, a little suspicious, but if you're trying to breed, they're good questions. What snakes are ball pythons? Because they're the most passive. Marty sleeps up high lately, but all the way under the light. Yeah, I mean it's good. They're all over the place, so you just find a light schedule that works with you too. Because especially if light leaks out from the tank, and let's say the tank is in your bedroom, you probably don't want lights to kick on at like 6 a.m. if you're still sleeping, even if your lizard is awake or your snake or whatever, your turtles. So you just try to put the lights with their activity hours. That's all. But just I would rather have the lights go off a little bit earlier when they're just chilling and they're away from the basking spot than come on a little bit earlier. Like for Simba, like I said, I could have his lights come on at 10, and that would be when he starts moving. But if I have it come on now, I know he's going to get up to full heat because he's too lazy to move. I need digestion from eating the night before. This is going to really help move everything through, and he's just going to suck in that UVB. Because during the day, he's too excited. He wants to be out. He wants to roam the house. He wants to go on his platform. He wants to do whatever. Yeah, Denny, Savannah monitors. So you just have to be careful because Savannah monitors, the way that they live in the wild is a little contradictory to how they live as a tank, like as a pet, because people want to feed every day or people want to feed large amounts of food. Uh-oh, Simba's starting to wake up. He's looking at me. And so it's just really easy for them to store fat because of that. So you just need to make sure that that doesn't happen. It's also really easy for them to lose the fat. So you gotta, I weigh Simba once a month. I just stand on a scale holding him, and then I stand on a scale by myself. And I do like to have his weight fluctuate between 7 and 9 pounds. So I'll get him close. 8 is like his perfect weight. But I like him to make a little bit of fat because it's normal. So if I can get him to about 8.5, and then I still feeding him during this whole process. Then I feed him a little bit less, and I like to get his weight down to about 7.5. So that way he's cycling and he's burning off that old fat. Then he makes fat. Then he gets rid of the fat. So it's really easy to do, right? Because instead of feeding 10 dubia roaches every meal when I need him to lose fat, I'll feed him 5. So he'll still be eating. So he'll be digesting his fat, and he'll be digesting a mix of roaches. And then when I need him to gain weight, more roaches, so his body doesn't pull from the fat, just from the roaches. It makes new fat. Super easy to keep them healthy. You just can do that. And I just like to do that because I feel that's more natural for him, because that does kind of mimic the wild. There's some people who just feed him little amounts basically all the time to keep the weight super stable and not really have them make fat. We don't really know if one is better than the other. So it's up to you. That's the big thing. We just don't know, because as pets, having them live long as pets is very new. So we don't have, there's no long-term data of why did this Savannah monitor. We know why they die early because of the fat, but there's no long-term data of keeping them basically fit the entire life or kind of skinny. Will that help them live to 30 years old? Or is doing the cycling going to help? I would think that having them healthily mimic a process that they naturally do in the wild, and in the wild, doing that process naturally, they get to 20 years and things like that, if they're not killed by a predator or close to it. But is it something that can be improved on? I don't want to run the risk of keeping them healthy. Only lets them live till 10. So I'd rather be happy with 20 by cycling than, oh, I could have got to 25 if I would have kept them fit, but it's a gamble. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I try really hard with getting good information out there because a lot of people are becoming first-time reptile owners or considering becoming first-time reptile owners, and they're realizing this is really important. They're realizing that these reptiles that for a long time have been called beginner reptiles or starter reptiles or expert reptiles, that really doesn't exist. That is something that's so old and outdated. One reptile is not harder to take care of than another reptile. A black throat monitor is not harder to take care of than a bearded dragon. In fact, they're all the same. They're all the exact same difficulty. Now, they're not all the exact same cost, and they don't all have the exact same routine. Cost is a couple things. One is the cost of the lizard outright, although that's typically not crazy, but the cost of everything else, the enclosure is going to cost more because if you get a larger reptile, you will need a larger enclosure. The products you may need to use to heat it or light it could cost more because, again, the enclosure is larger. And then the amount of food typically that a larger reptile eats and what it eats. But cost is not something that should make something harder because that's irrelevant to the person only. A rich person does not feel the same cost burden as a middle class or a poor person. So because of that, people are saying, I don't need to start with a leopard gecko. I don't need to start with a bearded dragon. I can start with the Savannah monitor, and it's not any harder than the bearded dragon. It gets larger than the bearded dragon. I need a larger enclosure. My light needs to be longer. I can't use a 2-foot UVB light. Maybe I need a 4, or maybe I need 2 2-foot ones, to go on different spots. So it's just cost that is different. That's it. That's all the difference that there is. One is not harder than there are not expert reptiles. They're not any harder. Anyone who tells you this is a beginner reptile or this is for experts or this is moderate difficulty, they're just wrong. That's all. They're just 100% wrong. And anyone who does a video that says, I give this reptile a rating 3 out of 5 for ownership. Again, that's just wrong. They're all the same rating, let's say just 3s across the board, but they are a slightly different experience because of the cost. And typically it's not huge costs, but that's all. But I like that more people are starting out with Savannah monitors, quince monitors. Maybe they get a boa instead of a ball python. They start with a more expensive bearded dragon. They don't have to start with a normal bearded dragon. Maybe they'll get a hypo-trans Dunner bearded dragon that's mostly red and has just shedding his whole life. Instead of, the Petco $30 bearded dragon because they feel like, oh, I need a starter bearded dragon. You don't need that. Mine only eats every few days. How much should she weigh at 10 and 12 months? There's not so Denny, the weight thing is there's no way to know. Okay, anyone who tells you they weigh this much or they weigh this much, there's no way to know. You're just looking for a healthy amount of body fat. You don't want them to look obese. Savannah monitors can be difficult because they have multi-chambered lungs that go the whole length of their abdomen, so they can store a lot of air. So they can look fat sometimes, but you just have to get good at feeling the fat. If you're ever worried that your monitor is getting fat, you can have them ultrasound it. You can look at the fat, right? And they can see the fat deposits. But if you look, most Savannah monitors store fat near in front of the tail, just in front of the back legs. You can feel the fat in there. Or when they walk, it's very important that they stand up and their belly is not dragging. So, you're just looking for that behavior. There's a lot of videos I do on Simba walking, and he stands right up and he's walking and he holds his tail up, so you know he's not all fat, you know there's muscle there. Those are the important things to look for. My bearded dragon woke up about 6 days ago. Nice. Mine are finally all awake. So far, he's only had a small amount of veggies. He has had a bath with no poo. Dang. What can I do to help him become more? I don't know how long he was asleep for, but they take a while. They take a little bit to get going. Because even they'll eat a little bit, but they need to eat. So they need to get their energy back from that brumation. It can take a week to 2 weeks before they really get moving again. Because even when they eat now, they're still just waking things up. They'll eat only a little bit. And remember, the energy is coming from the food. So once they start eating, it is important if you have things, you kind of feed things that are more wet, especially if they're eating greens, kind of try to make them more wet. That'll put a lot of moisture in there. So all that poop that was created during brumation and the urate that typically hardens during brumation can, get a little bit moistened and fire out of there. We haven't seen sweet little tortellini. Dude, here's the problem. Sweet tortellini is true. Little is not becoming true anymore. But maybe as the tortoise is getting bigger, I'll probably have to do a video on him to show him more. It's harder to hold for videos because he doesn't really like to be held up and dangling. Because if I hold him here for too long, it's going to push his wiener out. It's going to pee and poop all over me, and it's just not going to be a good show. Because he's getting big now. Like when tortoises start to get big, they start to feel very insecure when held up like this. So it's hard to bring out for the live stream. I have seen that same fear. As long as the snake is not venomous and someone else is there, I like the way they feel. Not a fan of surprise snakes can be scary. But if I was to, this is how I introduce people to snakes, whether I show them when they're in the tank and the tank is closed is different. But I say, hey, I'm going to bring out a snake. Do you want to see it? So first, there's a ton of warnings before, when they're in a different room of the house, not the reptile room. I say, I'm going to bring out a ball python. Let's pretend I'm talking about Guinevere. She's like tan and a yellowish tint, so they know what to look for. She's not venomous. It's super safe. She's super calm. She's 0% chance of anything going wrong. Don't worry. And I go, I'll even keep her away. You can see and you can pet her, but just watch. And then I'll bring her out and I'll say, just watch. She's not going to do anything. And I show them this. And, I talk about how they're royal pythons. And in the United Kingdom, they were worn as accessories to clothing and how calm they are. And then it's really important to always show them away from the head because they're scared of the head, right? So when you're starting to show, I would do something like this. Like, here, look at her. You don't see her head. And they're like, oh, okay, and here, touch her back here. Okay, cool. And then I'll show the head. And I'll be like, look how, and right away when I show the head, I just say, yeah, look how small this head is. And they're like, oh, wow, it's super tiny. Because, right, in movies, they blow up the head. They make it look big. Or even when people are filming, they get, like, really close. Or you see a lot of YouTube thumbnails where they enlarge the size of the head. Like, oh, my snake almost ate me. And they'll be like this. And they'll look scared. And they'll take her head. And they'll magnify it 50 times. Clickbait, right? So I'll be like, yeah, look at that head. I go, yeah, like, could you even believe why people, isn't it? And this is what I say, it comes on. Isn't it stupid that people think like a head this big could eat them? So right away, they're like, I just say how stupid it is that people would think that, because then they're going to be like, wait a second. Then they're going to get thinking, they're like, right, even if that thing latched onto me, how could my whole body fit in that head, right? Now you're making them, you're starting to get them to think reasonably, right? And then they're like, so then they agree right away. They're like, yeah, it is stupid. Oh, the fear is gone. And I go, yeah, see what she's doing right here? Yeah, she would just do that if you held her. She'll do the same thing. And they're like, really? That's all she'll do? Yeah, she won't wrap around my neck and try to choke me. No, she'll just do this. Then you take the snake, you put them in that hand, in their hand, and oh, look, the snake's doing the exact same thing. And they're like, oh, you're right. But then they say, like, well, every movie that I've seen, the snake is like strangling someone and the snake's like biting their jugular out, and that doesn't happen. Now, there were a lot of YouTubers who focused on snake biting and reptile biting and look at this carnage and let me do these live feedings and right for that shock factor, that aggression, that fear factor, and it's just not true, unfortunately. Morning, just got up. Rocco, I'm doing good. How you doing? I had my first in 2018. She passed in late January this year. She looks good like Simba for her age. She's really long for her age. They just, man, some get long, some get a little bit fatter, some stay short. If you even look at the scale of the ones they measured in the wild, they're all over the place. They're all over the place with length. They're all over the place with weight. There's kind of a curve that can be made with them in the wild, but it's still all over the place. Double Dragon Hotel has donated $10, which thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Any donations to Patreon, GoFundMe, and YouTube videos, it 100% always goes towards the reptiles. None of it goes to me. And if you guys don't know and you want good information, especially if you have bearded dragons, go look at Double Dragon Hotel's YouTube channel. Really good information about bearded dragons. Should have named him Voldemort. There we go. Voldator. Yeah, that's great. Except he's not black or albino, so he's not like a dark black evil looking tortoise, and he's not like super white like Voldemort was. I remember when my youngest sister came to visit, and she was deathly afraid of snakes, and I helped her get over her fear with wild snakes while I was herping. Yeah, gardener snakes are good. Water snakes can be scary for some people because you see them in the water and they could come at you really fast. So someone who's afraid of snakes, that fast moving can scare people. My brother was deathly afraid of snakes 5 years ago. I mean, afraid. And now he breeds ball pythons. So, who would have thought? Bubby says hi, spelled backwards probably. She went from afraid to loving. Yeah, good. I mean, it's just, you don't need to love snakes, by the way, when you show someone a snake. And it's okay if someone is still afraid of snakes, right? People are afraid of the dark, even though there's no demon in the dark. People are afraid of the monster under their bed, even though there's no monster under their bed, right? So people can still be afraid of or not like snakes, but the goal with the education is just so they understand the snakes. And if they're still scared of them, at least they actually understand why they're afraid of it. That's the important thing. So you're just educating people. You're not going to turn people into everyone loves snakes, but you're just going to educate them to understand the snake. And then they could even actually at that point even understand why they are scared of it. So that's fine. It's weird. The bigger snakes are less scary because they are not as fast and wiggly. Until you go over 20-footer, it's intimidating. So, yeah, so, I say corn snakes are they're not like a good snake for people who are afraid of snakes because they're very thin typically and they're very fat. Again, they're safe snakes. They're such nice snakes, good colors. But sometimes you get those colors that scare people. Right now, if you've got an orange snake that's yellow and or white and black and orange, venomous. First thing, venomous, right? Must be. Even if it's not. And it's thinner, and it's very squiggly, and it's fast moving. That can scare people, right? That fast moving, that wiggliness. Where this is, you can watch her. She's not going anywhere fast. Even if she was going to try to wrap around me and choke me to death, she might fully get a wrap in like 30 minutes, right? Like, it's those horror movies where the main villain walks very slow, and I feel like if you were just in an open street, like if you were just running straight down your street, nothing for him to hide behind or jump scare you, and he's at one end, and you've already got like a 5-house distance, and you take off sprinting, right? It's like Michael Myers, and you see doom, and you look back, and now he's like 10 houses. Like, yeah, he's never gonna catch you, right? The thing about the horror movies is that somehow he teleports in front of you and then he comes out from around the corner. But if you're just dashing in that straight line, you're probably pretty good. Remember to, oh yes, if you guys please, the biggest thing you can do on the live stream is leave a like. We got 19 viewers, only 14 likes. You guys are disappointing me. But also any video you watch on YouTube of mine, if you leave a like and you leave a comment, even if your comment just says hi, liking and leaving simple comments like that boosts the algorithm and YouTube then promotes the video. So liking and leaving a one-word comment of hi actually boosts your analytics like crazy. It's shocking. If you watch a video and you don't leave a like and you don't leave a comment, even if you watch the whole video and you actually like the video, YouTube thinks, oh, they didn't like the video. And then the video doesn't get promoted, which sucks. Can you give me tips on taming my Savannah monitor? I know you've made videos, many videos, but I feel like I'm struggling with it. Some days we make good progress, other days take a step back, it seems. She's 8 months old. Well, one is, are you sure it's a she? And two, when you get around that 1 year mark, there's a lot of hormones, female or male hormones, Aiden. So people will think that there are setbacks. You just stick to it. The biggest thing with taming, though, is never forcefully picking them up when they're trying to run away from you. But the hormones do have to balance. So you can see my video with Simba when he was like that age and he wanted to kill me, right? We went from best friends to him wanting to kill me to him being the sweetest, most cuddly lizard possible. So you need to know about that little puberty stink that they go through. Thank you again. Thank you. True. It's hard to help people with fear over snakes as long as I educate them on the biggest thing is the misconceptions. If people are always going to be, maybe they don't like forked tongues. And sorry, snakes have forked tongues, so you're never going to like the snake, right? That's just what it is. Then what you do is you introduce them to a legless lizard, which looks like a snake, except it has eyelids. That's the only difference. And then you say, well, guess what? This isn't a snake. It's a legless lizard. And they're like, what? Yeah, so are you afraid of lizards? No. Well, here's a lizard that looks exactly like a snake. Oh, you are the best out there with your info about your babies. Okay, I'll hit that in a second. You're just a blessing to me and so many others out here. I watch all your videos. The monitors are the best. Thank you. I just, like I've said this 100 times, but you can stop me. Yeah, I make the videos to help people understand, help educate people. Yeah, maybe people find them entertaining, and once in a while I try to make them a little funny or a little entertaining, but that's not the main goal. I'm just trying to help people who either own reptiles and need help or are thinking about getting a reptile, and also educating the professional keeping community as well, like veterinarians and whatnot. I get a lot of veterinarians who reach out to me. It's insane. But I'll give you an example. I'll withhold the person's name here, but I just had a case. Someone direct messaged me on Instagram and said, hi, I have a leopard gecko. She's not been eating. She's really weak. The vet wants me to put her down because the vet says she has MBD and she needs to be put down. And I'm like, well, and that's just the message. This guy doesn't live by a vet. He would be driving, 2 hours to then have his leopard gecko put down. I was like, okay, send me some pictures, right? And they send me pictures, and I'm looking at these pictures, and I'm like, okay, I see a leopard gecko who's not super underweight because still has a little bit of a plump tail, but looks weak. Her hands are curled in when she's standing on him because she's not strong enough. And I go, well, how did the vet diagnose MBD, which is grossly overdiagnosed. And then when diagnosed, typically diagnosed as fatal, never treated, even though it's 100% curable. And then they said, well, because she's curling her tail, and her arms and hands are curled. And I'm like, well, I don't see any MBD signs here. I don't see that the bones were formed bad, having early MBD. So, and he goes, she was eating up until about a month ago, which again, it takes the leopard gecko a long time to go through their fat. That tail is all fat, purposely for this. And I said, well, she just could have gotten sick. Things could have happened. She could have been laying eggs. I said, have you tried supplementing her, the syringe feeding? No, the vet wants me to put her down. Okay, great. So I said, I wouldn't put her down. I would rehab her because her tail is plump. She hasn't been not feeding long. She's not sick. So anyways, he got the Repta aid. He fed her. We communicated back and forth. A month later, her eyes are fully opened, crystal clear. She stands upright on all four legs. She walks around. She runs around. She moves her tail. She stands fully straight. There's no MBD. Of course there was no MBD. But that's the go-to. Oh, your lizard is sick? Must be MBD. Must be something wrong. The vet was wrong. Shocker. Not really. But I don't blame the vets because they don't have a lot of experience, right? That sucks. Like, even if you get training and you get your certification to do reptiles, how often do you actually see a sick leopard gecko as a vet? How many people are bringing in a $30 lizard to have a $300 workup? Probably not doing it, right? So you don't see them enough. Unless you're really rare. And if you're lucky and you're in an area still, how many people bring in a leopard gecko? Maybe someone brings in a tortoise, giant tortoise, a big monitor, but you just don't see these things enough. So it's not always the vet's fault. I just wish more vets would say, I don't know. But they're not going to say that because that's a business. They want your business, right? I love there is such a thing as beardy puberty. Well, it's our child. It's not really beardy puberty. It's just all reptiles, right? When they start getting into sexual adulthood, they'll get hormones. They'll get testosterone. The males, they can become much more defensive, much more possessive. So it just happens. Those hormones. We need your help. We need to help you get on the algorithm more. You're an underrated YouTuber. You need more views, subscribers, likes. I don't care about being overrated. I don't view myself as the celebrity. But yes, if you help the algorithm boost, it literally does all that I want my channel to do, which is help people, educate people, help them with their sick reptiles, help them decide what reptile to buy. I do that often. Help them care for a reptile they already have correctly. That's all that it's about. That's why if you leave likes and you leave a comment is all you need on every video, promotes it, helps a lot. Okay, so whenever you donate, there's always fees, just so people know. The best place to donate for the least amount of fees is Patreon or GoFundMe. Those are the best. They take like 1%. Everywhere else takes like 30 to 40%, including YouTube. So if you want to sign up for Patreon, you can do $1 a month. They bill you the first of every month. It's not a lot of money. If you want to do a one-time donation for Patreon, sign up for, let's say you wanted to give me $10, sign up for $10. And then once you pay the first $10, then just cancel the Patreon. Simple. Done. Done and done. It's really important to find a vet who specializes. They do exist. A leopard gecko's tail can literally shrink up. Yeah. So the reason why vets and reptile vets are hard is it's expensive to be a reptile vet. You have to re-up your certification. You have to pay thousands of dollars extra to be a reptile vet. Okay, not horrible. If you're getting the business. So if you're seeing, let's say it's $5,000 a year, your cost to pay to be a reptile vet. That's an expensive certification to be a reptile vet. You now have to see at least 10,000, right? Because you look at double the return if you want to be successful. At least $10,000, and you're still a normal vet, so you're paying the normal vet prices. But you are going to say, I have to see at least $10,000 worth of reptile patients to justify being the reptile vet. Okay. But then the other part is, so that's the cost aspect. But then it's the practicality of how do you become really good at your profession? Well, experience. Well, let's say the cost is no big deal and you're willing to take a loss on the reptile vet certifications, and maybe you only see $1,000 worth of reptile patients a year. But how do you stay good at that? How do you stay hot? If you see one ball python a year and it has a different issue, how do you know what you're doing? And that's the hard part. So if you're not in an area that has, one, a large reptile population ownership, two, the ownership who has money or willingness to bring their reptiles to the vet, then what? You're going to go to conferences, you're going to go to shows, you're going to try to learn at presentations for reptiles. So it's already a service you're already losing money on, and then you need to become good at it. But then when you're away at those conferences, that's even more of a hit because now you're not seeing A, potential reptiles, or B, dogs or cats, etc. So it's hard. Hopefully, as the ownership goes up, then the need for good vets will go up. Now, there are places, Florida, things like that, that have a high reptile population of personal ownership. Once you have that, then there are really good reptile vets there that also get the experience. And the experience is a big thing because you can have someone who wants to be a good reptile vet, will take the financial loss of the certification, but they're just not getting the experience because that area doesn't have it. So it's a hard thing. And yes, leopard geckos' tails can dehydrate down to nothing, but it takes a long time. But they also plump up really super quick. It's very hard to starve a leopard gecko, even though I have a very sad series on that. But they can go a long time without eating or drinking. It's fascinating. Do you still have your African bullfrog? Is he still adorable? So first of all, everyone will always be adorable. That's number one. They will always be adorable. Yes, he does. I remember one time a vet told this woman that her snake was sizing. Oh God, Rocco, that is just the story that just gets passed around. There was a vet. It was a friend of a friend of a friend, and then the vet says it because they heard it. So snakes do not size up their meals. Snakes who are ambush predators, right? They're ambush predators and they're predators of opportunity. They do not size up their meals. They do not also stop eating for a long period of time. That way they'll have room to eat a bigger meal. That's not how it's done. That's a fake story. It's not true. It's never been true. It always gets recirculated around. Right. It just gets circulated around and around and around and around, and it's not true. It's not true. And people circulated of the vet tells the story that it was true, and then this, and I even saw it on a TV show once. I think like 100 Worst Ways to Die, and they mentioned it. And it's like, good God. So it just gets passed around. What does it mean when a monitor female lowers her head and make brief jerky motions when you put her hand under her head and face? She rubs her. That's just a surrendering. That's just a surrendering posture. That's all that it is. They'll do it to other larger monitors. They're just they're not challenging you. That's all. They're just not challenging you. It's just a surrendering posture. You'll see it when larger monitors come by. Simba does that. Simba lowers his head. He puts it down when Smog and everyone is nearby because that's just his way of saying, hey, buddy, I don't want to start any beef with you. And then everything's all good. That story hit the internet in the mid-90s. Yeah, I remember when we talked about that. I don't know when it originated, but once it was able to spread, it spread. Rocco, at Rocco, 4 skulls. Very good. Yeah, the sizing up stuff is a misconception. I have no... It's just someone said it as a joke, and it just got passed around, and it spread like wildfire, right? That's all. I got a question on dubia colonies. Oh, great. We're off to a good start. Of course they all are. I just have a particular crush on their. I have a lot of succulents. Can bearded dragons eat? You know, that's a great question. I actually I don't know, and I'll be the first to say things when I don't know them. But I would assume that different types of succulents possibly are different, you know, chemical makeup and things like that. Because there's a lot of vegetables that they really can't eat or are not good for them in large amounts, like eggplants and things like that. I mean, I assume they could take a bite of it and it wouldn't kill them instantly. You know, for a bearded dragon to eat something that's going to kill them, they normally have to eat a large amount, right? If they just take a taste, it's not like cyanide or something where they just die. Normally, if they eat something they don't like, it's very rare, but they can throw it up. But that's very rare. A lot of times, you just get diarrhea. It would be if they ate large amounts of it. I don't know of something that is instantly death in like a small sample. But I'm also, you know, I hope you guys notice that I'm like one of the first people to, if I don't know something, I just admit it, right? I've been working with reptiles for decades, right? But do I know everything? No, no way. There's things I still see that I see for the first time, and I'm fascinated by it. So you're always learning. I'm always learning, just like hopefully you guys are always learning. Just Google safe plants. Yeah. And basically, the list of safe plants are not the only things, but they are a list of things that we know that bearded dragons have eaten lots of and not died. Are they the only things? Probably not. There's probably a lot more, but I don't see people in a laboratory with, you know, thousands of bearded dragons who are like, and now we'll feed this plant. It's a new, and we'll oh, this one killed Bob. All right, put it down as deadly. Well, no, we need to make sure it wasn't a fluke. So now we're going to feed this plant to Samantha. Oh, that killed her. All right, we're going to now say that kills, right? Like, probably not happening. There's a misconception that snakes don't have bones. Yeah, that's kind of weird, but especially because not only do snakes have bones, they have tons of bones. Spinal cord, first of all, the spinal cord goes down the whole body all the way through the tail. And the tail, remember, the tail on a snake is just the piece after the vent. So Guinevere's tail is from my thumb to here. So is that about 3 inches? That's her tail. Every couple millimeters, there is 2 ribs, right? Boom, boom, boom. Goes down the whole length of the entire body, all the way down. And obviously, they have a skull, which are bones. So you have that goes through the whole thing, right? But you can also show someone the bones, especially with a ball python, because you can decompress your ball python very easily. You just take your ball python and you just do a little tug, and you will feel all the gas escaping through the bones, just like that, through the joints, and you can feel all the bones. It's quite nice. Is it okay to give her goldfish in the water tub? Yeah, so goldfish are fattening. They're also typically really dirty fish. There are better feeder fish. I don't know if they're little minnows or whatever. You also get them from the pet store. They're known as a feeder fish. They're the ones I feed to my turtles. I do feed Simba fish, salmon, or you've seen bass, tilapia, whatever's getting clearance or on sale at the grocery store when it's time for their special meal for the month. I'd rather feed that. Goldfish are really fatty and typically bottom feeders, and they eat each other's poop and not healthy at all. BioDude sells safe enclosure plant. Oh yeah. So I cleaned my colony yesterday and found all these little white bugs. They aren't springtails, as they look like little white mice, which they are. I did switch over to a new food, meat chicken feed. These guys suddenly appeared. Is it something to worry about? Okay, so if you have a dubia roach colony and you find these little white mites all of a sudden appearing in your colony, and you're feeding a grain type food, meat bird pellets, which is the best food in my opinion to feed them, you have a chance of getting grain mites. And typically there's a reason why grain mites are happening. And no, they're not bad, and they're also very easy to treat. So the reason you can get grain mites are, one, if you just you always have food in your dubious colony and you're putting too much food and that food is sitting for too long, there's going to be dust that also arises from that on the sides, and that will attract mites that are living on fruit flies or things like that. They're not harmful to the dubia roaches, but you want to get rid of them. So, because they can just explode out of control. And they could also then go from the dubia colony into your food source. So the first thing is you want to make sure your food, your surplus of food, is locked up, sealed, in a container. Perfect, that you have to open and close. Great. Second thing, you want to make sure you're putting enough food in there, but not so much that that same food's sitting there for months. And then the third thing you can do is, we all have like air holes in our lid for our dubia colony, right? Typically people will have a screen, but that screen is still large enough for fruit flies and things to get in. You can put like a mesh, like a bug net mesh over the air holes, and that will stop fruit flies from ever getting in there. Now, how do you treat the mites? Grain mites are super simple to treat because they need constant food all the time. If you have heat on your dubia colony, you shut the heat off. You take your dubias out, clean the lid. So typically on the lid or the walls, because they're so small, they really need to eat these powdered fragments. So you wipe them all out, but obviously some could exist in the frass. You clean the frass, but they could be on the egg cartons. So you clean out your colony, and then you don't feed your colony for a couple days. Those mites need to be constantly eating, where your dubias can go a couple days without food. Don't worry about it. And they'll die. And that's it. That's all. You just don't put any food back in. The dubias will be fine for 3, 4, 5 days without food. They'll be hungry when you put food back in there, and you don't want to feed right away during that time. You can feed on day 1 of not eating, but on day 4 or 5, wait, don't feed those dubias off to your lizards because they're not fully saturated. Then you put the food back in there, and then in 2 days you feed them off to your lizards. But so they're super easy to treat. Cut their food source, they die. They need 24/7 food. Goldfish are not all there, LOL. That's true. Could they be spider mites for some reason? Yeah, no, grain mites, trust me. Hi, I can ask any question. You can ask any reptile question, Mayday, that's fine. But I'm going to go put Guinevere back just because she's been out. And I'll probably grab a bearded dragon. I'm not sure which one, and come back. And we'll hit a couple more questions, maybe 15, 20 more minutes. I'll be right back. Oh, all right. Let's see where we're at here, huh? Sorry I'm late. I didn't realize this was on yet. But what decor should you put in a dragon enclosure? What decor should you put in? None. If you're just doing decorations, none. They're only for you. They're not for the bearded dragon. The bearded dragon doesn't care at all. You can put your fake plant in there. You can put your fake cactus. It's just in the way of the bearded dragon, and the bearded dragon doesn't care. Things that they would actually use, put a hide. You can put even a cloth hide. Bearded dragons love sleeping in luxury. If you have a soft, like, little bed, they'll sleep on it. Rock thing to climb, log, hammock, log to go through, like a hollowed log. But they don't care about decorations at all. It's just for you, and it just takes up space. I have a very picky bearded dragon. She is 2 years old and 10 months. And notice that her scales on the top of her head is changing shape. I don't know. It's because she won't eat her veggies unless forced. So how do I help encourage her to eat veggies without blending and giving? So you'll probably mean when you say the scales on her head, I'm going to assume her fat pads are starting to sink in. And yeah, eating veggies is a big problem. You can, first of all, you can try sprinkling powdered bee pollen and getting it wet so it kind of becomes like mushy. Like I put bee pollen, I mix them through, it almost becomes like a yellowish liquid because bee pollen, and you can smell it. It's a good probiotic. Humans, it's very good for humans too, but it smells like bugs, right? It smells like bugs and it tastes like bugs. So that can entice them to eat their greens. You can try different veggies, basically. Try different turnip, collard greens, dandelion greens. Those are all good tries. Arugula, different types of dark lettuces, red leaf lettuce. You can try peas. You can try squashes, carrots, bell peppers. You might have the yellow squash is really good. You may just have to play around to find something she actually likes the taste of. Bearded dragons have very strong tasting. They have like a human type tongue. They don't have like a forked tongue, right? So they like certain things and they don't. Rapashi, I made a video on that. I have a longer video coming out next week. Has a lot of bugs in it, but also has a lot of veggies and a lot of vitamins, and it's a gelatin food. In the video coming out next week, I show you how to make it really good and how to cut it into little bars and how to feed it to them. If they eat that, it's a little bit more of an expensive food, but it's so good for them, and it has the bugs and the greens. And sometimes you need a probiotic. So if they eat bugs, I think I have the probiotic linked in my comments. If they do eat bugs, you can sprinkle them with the probiotic. And what? I'm doing a live stream. What's the problem? What's the problem here? What? Why are you looking at me like that? It's pissed already. You've been out here for 2 minutes. Anyways, if they eat the probiotic, sometimes that can stimulate their gut bacteria and use it to make them more hungry, increase their appetite. What's the best hiding spot for dragons? It's just whatever they like, but sometimes like little rabbit hides that are cushioned that they go in and it's soft. They really like those. Fake rocks. All right. You can come here. Fine. For God's sakes. For God's sakes, man. Should I be concerned about my monitoring getting mites or parasites when I take her outside for a walk? No, I take mine outside all the time. I don't have any concern that anything's going to happen to Simba. No concern. I got a corner rock. Yeah, corner rock hide is nice if you're trying to save space. It's real good. She used to love super worm. Oh, my bearded dragon is 17 years old, and I gave up forcing greens 15 years ago. Yeah. She used to love super worms, but once she tried hornworms, she don't want to eat unless it's hornworms. Also, is blending her veggies till she at least gets the proper nutrition? Yeah, if that's what it is, that's what it is. Well, Marty was 36.6 grams on 11.7 when he arrived. I told you he was going to break 200. I said he's going to break 200. He's going to break 200. If only you could fix the dehydration issue with him, he'd be great. Wacky from being picky. Dude, Marty's getting huge fast. All right. Thank you, everyone who's watching. We got a little bit more, maybe about 10 minutes. If you haven't left a like on the stream, please leave a like. Remember, leaving likes on any video you watch of mine, if you leave a like and please leave a comment, it boosts the algorithm. Even if you stick around for a second, you leave a like. Otherwise, if you watch a video and you don't leave a like, even if you liked it, YouTube says you didn't like it. Basically, like it or you don't. And if you leave a comment, YouTube says you really like that video, so then other people will really like that video and we'll share it to everyone. And all I want to do is get information and education out. All right, aka Doolittle Jr. There we go. So any final questions anyone can think of? Can be anything, just as we're wrapping this up before we get out of here. I do like though, it says 22 people viewing with 29 likes. That's what I like to see. That's a lot of likes. What's the best enclosure size? You know, X-Wolf, there's not really a super best enclosure, but sometimes as they get older, they cannot climb as well. So you try not to have a taller enclosure, or if you do, you have more ramps rather than a log or something, but just know the fear of falling always happens. Personally, 3x2x2 is a really good enclosure for them for their entire life. If you want to go bigger, you can. They may not like it larger. And you can go slightly larger. I wouldn't, 4x2x2 is a big enclosure. 5x is even larger. Definitely when they're younger, though, they have a little bit more energy, so they may use the larger enclosure more. But as they get older, they want to relax here. They want to eat here. They want to sleep there. And that's it. And that's what they would do in the wild. In the wild there, people think they have this vast access to the rocky plains, and they'll travel for miles. No, they find the nice little spot that they like, and that's the area that they hang out in. I rescued a common boa. Awesome. I was having problems shedding. So I fixed its humidity, and its sheds are great. But now, it doesn't seem to really want to eat its skinny. What are you trying to feed it, Alexis? Are you just trying to feed it frozen thawed? So sometimes, especially a rescue, may have to be fed live, and sometimes they won't like rats. You may have to go with smaller chicks as well, and hopefully they change over. Especially it depends what they were eating before. But a lot of times with rescues, if they weren't eating frozen thawed or they were never trained to eat frozen thawed, you'll need to convert them into eating frozen thawed. You can try the thing of getting the thawed rat out, make sure it's very hot water, draining the hot water, leaving the rat wet, and just leaving it on a tray close to the boa's enclosure, but not in it, for at least 45 minutes so that scent really drives the boa crazy. Then reheating up with just hot water the rat, so it's really hot. That way the heat hunting picks up. Drying it, but now it's still hot, and then putting it in there. If they have a heat mat in the enclosure, normally putting it on the heat mat helps too. But if you see that she's eating live, you do the transition from live to frozen thawed, and then you'll typically be okay. Wait, I thought Marty was underfed and overweight. He's underfed and overweight as well as dehydrated, but he's also oversaturated. All right, lots of questions. Once I say that I'm leaving, everyone just spits in all the questions all at the same time. YouTube thinks you watch over an hour of video that you don't like. Yes, absolutely. If you watch the entire video, but you don't leave a like, in YouTube's eyes, you don't like the video. You didn't enjoy it. You didn't care about it. Now, if you leave a dislike in YouTube's eyes, it means you hated the video. But leaving a like is the most important thing to get shared out. Can my red-eared slider eat out of water? No. The red-eared slider can grab the food, but they have to swallow the food underwater. They need the water to push the food down to release the valve. Question. Any way to entice them to eat veggies? Some people will say float lettuce. You can cut little strips of carrot and you can feed it to them, but they don't always eat veggies. A bearded dragon is in a 60 or 65 gallon. That's a good tank, yeah. Do you post on Instagram? I do post on Instagram as Animal One Guy on Instagram. It's more rare than I would like it to be. People are always like, "Where's your Instagram? Where's your?" I don't have a social media manager. You'll see some posts, some pictures will come up time to time, some reels will come up time to time. And I really wish I could do more on Instagram, but it's not super active. And also, Instagram does not pay any money. So I do post YouTube shorts though. So if you have the YouTube app, you can watch, the 60-second YouTube short. I just don't have a lot of time. That's what sucks. She'll eat berries. That's good. Everyone will eat berries. We seem, but 90% dusted insects and grub pot. Oh, that's good. Yeah, rapashi is good. Boiled chicken. Now we're talking. I like. Very good. Everyone of your videos, you're the best. I look forward to seeing more. Thank you so much. Like I said, the likes and start leaving a comment. Just if you leave a comment that says hi, that helps a lot. Look at this, 23 viewers, 33 likes. We're booming. Oh, makes sense. I found in though. I just wanted to add in case later on there's post people. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks as always. You're welcome. Maybe. Thank you for all that you do. You're welcome, John. You're welcome. What do you think? Oh, yeah. Thank you. More frogs, please. Frogs? Like, I would love some frogs that, those like big gooey frogs that like just sit there and suck on your finger and everything. But you really need to have a good environment for them. I don't have an area that I really can dedicate to being super, super humid for like a frog. So you can't really have everything, right? So you really got to specialize and do something good. That's all. Fresh rose petals. All right. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much. Oh, Fumi, it's so good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you pop in, or I haven't had a message from you in a long time. So I'm glad that you and Elon are both doing really good. Do you remember any oils or stuff to add on bearded dragon when there's so really, Maddie, they make a stuck shed spray, but it's essentially water with just a little bit of something else to help. Normally, just warm water, baths, soaking, dripping, it is gonna help peel it off. Yeah, everyone loves egg lizards, especially the yolk. I'm just kidding. I totally feel you on the humidity. Yeah, I get it. Shetties, yeah, but you can just as well fill that thing with hot water and just spritz hot water. If you really got a problem with shed, you really put them in something where the humidity gets up. If it's on their back, actually, you know what I've done a lot is I've just taken a warm, like a hand cloth, gotten it wet with really warm water, a light one because they're light, and just lay it on their back, and then I would go refresh it, reheat it, lay it on their back. So now it's covered the shed of their back, and I just keep putting it on there. That's what I do. If you're worried that they move around and they won't stay with it, then you put them in a smaller container, right? Like a Tupperware, put that on their back, refresh it, because it's better than trying to fill them up with water so the water covers their back, and it's all over the place. What? I mean, Shetties is safe. You can spray it right into their eye, but that's because it's not much different than water. That's the deal. All right, we got about 2 minutes here, and then we're going to say goodbye. So anyone wants to speed in their last questions? If not, we'll see you in a month. Johnny Cage has brought all the viewers to. Johnny Cage, he's very mad at me right now. That's why he's so good. He's very mad. They say you're being so good. They say you're being so good. This is a good thing. They're saying how much they like you. Why are you mad at me? Yes. No, no. Everyone's saying how good you look. They say you're in shape. You look very muscular. Good tail length. They've been complimenting you, your behavior. You've been a very nice man, very distinguished gentleman. I got to go cross-eyed to look at you because of how close you are to my neck. Okay, yes. If you are a good thing, right of it. If you're a Patreon member, you get the best benefit in the world of being part of the Animal One Guy Discord, where I am in every single day almost. But so is my really good Patreon Discord community. You don't need to stay on Discord forever. You just need to be on Discord member for 1 month. That's it. Simple. If you're on Patreon and you don't know how to get on the Discord, I've made posts. I posted, but you can message me on Patreon, and I'll resend the link. It's really cool. So stop in. It's a great feature because really cool group of people. We talk about reptiles. We also talk about all other stuff. So don't worry about it. But we help people with their reptiles. People show off their reptiles. People will want advice buying a reptile. It's such a friendly environment, and there's a huge amount of us. So, but you get to talk to me, video chat. We just do voice chat. We do text chat. It's real cool. She had 2 baths this week. I did the storage bin. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you should normally be all right. You should normally be okay. I mean, bearded dragons, it's hard to really get stuck shed. That's when it's ready to come off, it comes off. But they are mostly dry shedders, so they can go a long time through the shedding process. It can take weeks when the skin turns white. It can take weeks for it to come off, and a lot of the times people think it's stuck or it should come off way before it's ready. All right. I think we're all good, everyone. We've gone to 10:30, so we've been here for over our hour. So just in case, hopefully you guys know I do a live stream on the last Saturday of the calendar month. Every month I try, unless something comes up. Sometimes if there's a holiday or something, it gets moved to the Sunday. So depends. But I'm there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this live stream. I've answered a lot of questions. What a lot of people tend to do is they basically come up with questions and they write them down throughout the month, and then they just spit them out, which is fine. And so you never have to, be in fear. Oh, what if someone asked this question before? I don't expect everyone to go through the archives. Just ask away, and if I know the answer or someone else knows the answer, we'll answer you. And if we don't, we'll tell you we don't know. Yeah, some of them, if you look online on Amazon, that's where I get it. You just want to make sure it's a powdered, all natural bee pollen, not granular. You want it to be the powder. Anyways, it was good to see everyone. Take care. Thanks for coming. You can ask a question every once in a while through Instagram. That's fine. If you think it's a question that a lot of people would benefit the answer to, and it's not an emergency, you can wait till the once a month live streams. Okay, take care, everybody. We're going to get out of here. I got to put him back before he gets mad. He's already mad, so take it easy. Have a great weekend, guys.